and we are here to talk about this very important topic. The whole idea of this is based on these three titles in Sanskrit. That song that we heard previously, just now, with this title, Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram, I think the first couple of verses were actually in Sanskrit, if I can hear correctly. Because Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram are Sanskrit words, and they are the actual titles of God. So that's, they are the, if you wanted to describe God in Sanskrit, you'd use this phrase, and it's actually become a mantra as well. And Satyam means the one who's truth, or Shiva means the benefactor, and Sundaram means the beautiful one. So what is God? He's the truth, he's the benefactor, and he's the most beautiful being. I remember even when you look at the Gita, the word Krishna is used not very often, but it's always in the sense of an attribute of God. Because when they say in Sanskrit, Bhagavanu Vacha, which is the beginning of each chapter of the Gita, the translation would be God speaks, but they translated it as Krishna speaks, because they think that Krishna is Bhagwan. But Bhagwan means the one who also brings fortune. So who is that one? And even the word Krishna means the most attractive one, also the most beautiful one too. So there's a parallel there. They call Krishna Sham Sundar, which means he's both dark and also fair, ugly and beautiful. So he's the beautiful one. Who is the beautiful one for us? And so what I did was, at the same time that Judy was working on a project, it was like some of these things is called synchronicity, with Gopi, Sister Gopi, on exactly this, Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram, based on a book that we have, a fantastic compilation of mulis with this same title, Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. So parallel to that, a coincidence or a synchronicity, I was working on this thing around Shivratri at a retreat for Brahmins, because we wanted to do something for Brahma Baba in January and Shiv Baba again in late February, early March. So this is what, okay, so I was talking to Judy about this. I said, yeah, this material is here and we can offer it if you want, so why not? So the idea was to bring this topic up, and I'm going to share the screen a little bit, if you don't mind. That's okay, can you see? So with this title and with this feeling, we're going to start. So as I said, these three qualities of God, truth, reality, that's another thing. Baba says truth, reality, eternity are fairly much synonyms. So what is, and without any subjective distortion. So if you look at all of the things in the whole universe, in essence, everything is true, in a sense that the basic components of everything are what they are. They are real. The thing is that those basic elements end up composing or creating, then we have this subject to so many interpretations. The word Shivam, as I said, it means pure benevolence. It's the action of truth. How does truth look when it's doing something? It's benevolent. It's divine. And Sundaram means beauty. So the image of truth. So truth is there. Truth, an expression of truth is benevolence, and an image of truth is beauty. So that's why those three titles actually very succinctly described God to us. And so if you look here, the soul, and what do we have in common with Baba, is this, he's similar. And on the basis of similarities, we can actually connect up. So he doesn't have a body. He doesn't have a profession, let's say, in this world. His only profession is to give truth, to radiate truth, to come here and speak the knowledge, actually. So on the basis of similarities, we can connect up with Shiv Baba. His truth and my deep truth are very similar. His beauty and my deep inner beauty are very similar. His benevolence and what we are basically as givers. If nature, for example, just gives naturally, like the sun shines, it doesn't charge for its rays in a way, it just shines out, no problem. So nature just gives. Water is there, air is there, sun is there, they just give. And so my nature also is one of giving. My deep nature is one of giving. So we have so much in common with Baba, and we have to remember that. On the basis of those commonalities, we can create a fairly good connection. I am a point of light, as Baba was saying yesterday. He's also a point of light, and the absolute essence of all spiritual effort is actually to reduce everything to 2 points and a line in between. Me, the soul, Baba, the Supreme Soul, and the connection between us. So that's where, if we can sit in this absolute essence of things, where we can really, get some great feeling happening in our hearts and in our minds. And one of the reflections that I like to make here, just simply about the basic elements of the universe. Souls are true, atoms are true, God is true. These are the three basic components. And of those three, one of them doesn't change, which is Baba. The soul in the soul world is also unchangeable, unchanging. And atoms, of course, are always in a game of forming and unforming, different shapes and situations. And there's an amazing play between these three things. But what I've shown here's a line. It doesn't change. It's like completely straight and clean and simple. The things that do not change are the eternal. And one of those is Baba. Now, when things start to go up and down, then we go into the realm of possibilities, what can be, not what is, Here is what is, what doesn't change. And suddenly there are ups and downs, like the dualities start to show up and different impressions start to work, and people have different degrees of understanding of truth and beauty and wisdom and so on. And so there are oscillations in our connection with things. And so we go into the realm of possibilities rather than what is real. And when it gets really confused, very complicated, you can be absolutely certain that is what is not. From today's Morley, we can see very clearly how the path of devotion has complicated everything to such an extent that people have become confused and lost, actually, in the ramifications of their, speculations and searching and so on. But actually, Baba is very easy to understand. The soul is very easy to understand. And then we complicate it. And then we complicate it even more. So these are like just very simple reflections that I'm sharing here. And when Baba says very few understand who or what I am, therefore what? Therefore what? What I'd like to do, since we're not many people, if at any time you'd like to ask a question and just connect your microphone when you want to speak and then disconnect it afterwards. But if anyone would like to manifest themselves at any time, it's good. So if I think about this, even though Baba is so easy to understand and so accessible, even so, because I guess of the other impressions that we have in our minds of our physical bodies, first of all, and of the things that we have created through those bodies, like the physical ramifications, even family members that I've had a role in generating and so on. All of those ramifications not only keep me away from this absolute simplicity of truth, but it's incredible that we do how do you say I'm thinking in Portuguese here. We try to justify why we are trapped in a way. So, and of course, effort is similar too. If my effort is really connected, being essenceful, and seeing the soul for what it is and seeing Baba for what he is and making that connection, I will remain stable. If I'm trying to share that simple perspective with other things, then I will definitely be brought into ups and downs. And of course, those ups and downs, they continue, they go all around here and there and everywhere, all over the place. So my effort becomes irregular as my perception becomes irregular. It's an incredible thing. So in terms of faith, the same thing. When faith is based on truth and just absolute clarity of that simplicity, then the faith is unshakable. The real self is similar to God. No one can take away my peace. It's part of me. No one can take away my love. It's part of me. So understanding the truth of the soul too keeps me unshakable. And drama, what is it? It's something that happens eternally too. Every single second that happens is an eternal second in a way. You've got time stretching forward into the future that we know is without end, and stretching back into the past without end. But every single second repeats. So there's a dimension to time that stretches out to eternity. So just think of it, if you're having a meditation that's great meditation and suddenly you remember that this repeats, that great meditation becomes an eternally great meditation. So it's an incredible dimension to add to things. But of course, if I can't keep that clarity of perspective, my faith will oscillate ups and downs. And then when it gets a little bit out of hand, I start to have doubts about myself, about Baba, and even about the drama. So just to finish off this little bit, if we look at what, and this, I guess we can have a sort of a little break here to think about some situations, because we allow our situations to to affect us. And the way that a situation impinges on us will reveal our vulnerability to something, So I become vulnerable according to some limitation in my perception. And so some sources possibly are specific people. And how would I see someone who's affecting me, really? How would I see the truth of that person affecting me? I want you to, if you've got a piece of paper, write it down. If someone is really affecting me and making me sort of go into a spin, it's obviously an unreal or an untrue perception. So how do I bring myself back onto track? What do I see there in someone who's... So think about someone specific, someone that in the last, say, month has her or his behavior has affected you, has brought you into some up and down, or even into a spin. And then in the next column, write down how you would, if you had a completely true perception, as Baba would be seeing that individual, what would you see? Write it down. Let's put your Baba's eyes in front of your eyes. Put Baba between you and that particular person. So how should you see that person with a real and true awareness? So write it down. You got it? While you write it down, I'm going to pour myself out a glass of water. Next. This is a big one today. There are so many distractions and attractions that, like for example, YouTube, Facebook, you name it, any particular interest that takes me away from a true perception and keeps me stuck there for some time. And if we understand today's Morley, for example, I have a spiritual wealth, and of course I can invest in that wealth to make it increase, or I can waste it as well. So what sort of things attract me, and what sort of interests? You don't have to reveal this to anyone, but just for yourself. What are my favorite time wasters, or money wasters, or energy wasters? And how should I really be seeing them? And that's in the next column. So think about a specific thing that wastes your time or money or energy, something specific. And then in the next column, write down how you should see that thing. I remember I was in Canada many years ago. I was out west, actually, western part of Canada, the Rockies. And there was someone who took me, gave me a lift from one town to the next. And it was quite a long journey. So on the way he stopped, and I noticed that he had beside him in the car binoculars and a big book on the birds of Canada. So I asked him, by any chance, do you like bird watching? He said, yes, I love it. And just any time that I have free, I go into the woods and watch birds. And now I saw a list of birds that he'd ticked off and another list that he hadn't ticked off. So I asked him, are you trying to make up your list, are you? He said, yes, I'm trying to. And I was thinking, yeah, how I mean, that's very lovely and great, but how much does that, I didn't judge him, I didn't talk to him about it, but I was thinking afterwards, how could I really justify something like that in terms of my spiritual development unless I was doing it in a way that really reinforced my understanding of the soul and of God? Of course it could, but of course at the same time it can also just be a waste of time. So often hobbies are like that. They just absorb us, but they don't add any value. I didn't judge, but I was thinking that if I had such an interest, how would I work with that interest? Or how could I justify it? If I can't justify it, then why should I do it? If I can, why? Well, I'm good, wonderful. So how should I see things like that? And now we talk about a situation in the drama, something that has happened literally, or something, and maybe even a fixed obstacle, for example, some physical debility. It's like a fixed obstacle. You can't change that. Your leg is, one leg is shorter than the other, for example, or you can't see well out of one of your eyes, or you're half deaf, or anything like that. Some situation that you have a child that has special needs, for example, you have a sick parent, anything like that. It's a situation that you can't really do much about, but you have to learn to accept it and understand it. And otherwise you're just trapped. So how should you see that situation? Think about a specific one that's either a fixed obstacle or a moving obstacle, obstacles that can be moved, that has kept you stuck or in a spin at the moment, kept you oscillating. And how could you see that? The same situation with the eyes of knowledge, with the wisdom of God. How would you see it with the truth, a true perception? And of course, as we refocus everything in a true sense, then we change our experience of those things. And this is the whole essence of what the Murli was about this morning. Not just having great ideas strung together in our minds, but that I've churned them and I've transformed them into real, true experiences. And so my same life with the same people in the same situation becomes different. And this is the whole beauty of what Baba wants to give us. He wants us to be true like him, but that means to have a true understanding of things and a true relationship with people and things. This is what Baba wants. So, yes, from today's Murli, what truths did we get from there, Only one deal, simple and uncomplicated. That was the whole essence, the deal, the agreement, the bargain, the negotiation, the contract. Very simple, very uncomplicated. And Baba said, those in the path of devotion made something that's easy so difficult that it put everyone into a spin. So when you are on the path of devotion still, there are a couple of things that we have to understand. One of them is that we're still searching. Searching means that I don't have it. I haven't received it. I'm still searching for it. And the other one is asking for something. Like people go in front of the idols, in front of the saints, in front of God even, and ask for something. When I ask for something, it also means that I don't have it. And when I worship someone's qualities, it means that I'm not that. So if I'm searching, I don't know. If I'm asking for something, I don't have. And if I'm worshiping someone, I am not that. So that's why people keep spinning around. And truth will make us become what we have to become. And Baba says also, he gives the same for all, but we are we make the things number-wise according to our different understanding and effort. Also, Baba implied that attachment to physical wealth robs the soul of spiritual wealth. And Baba's talking about those that make excuses because of their physical wealth. They become so worried that they don't have time to dedicate to the spiritual wealth. So one thing robs the other. So these are some points. Baba in the morning, he will always speak those three things. He will say things of truth, he will say things of benevolence, and he will say things of beauty. Those three things are present in every single morning if we pay attention. So today was this. And Baba also said, because of being experienced, those who churn these things are able to make others to whom they give them experienced. So not just speaking to me, Baba says, don't just speak the things because you'll just turn others into speakers, but churn them, become experienced, give that experience to others, and they'll become experienced. So these are some things that you'll see in every single morning. Baba will be speaking something from the truth. He will be Shivam. He will be saying something of benevolence as a benefactor, and he will be saying something of so just to finish this a little bit up, being true like Brahma Baba. This I've selected two things that show that truth. Baba was the conqueror of attachment, Nashna Moha, and he was the example of renunciation. That means he understood what was true and what was not true, and he opted for what is true, and that became what we call renunciation. So I'm going to read here a little bit of a Murli on this, because the way that I'm angling this, and you'll see this throughout today, the idea of Shiv Baba as the source of these things, of course, but the example of these things, the one that we have to follow, is how he put this truth into practice, how he put this benevolence into practice, and how he put this beauty into practice. So Baba said on the 18th of January 96, very short little extract. The 18th of January is the day of remembrance when Brahma Baba became completely free from all attachment. And that's really something which is so true, isn't it? The essence of the 18 chapters of the Gita is that God made Arjuna the conqueror of attachment and the embodiment of remembrance. So this 18th is a memorial of this. No matter how much love Brahma Baba had for the children, he didn't have any attachment but love in his heart. And so, and of course, the children have experienced how much Baba used to remember those who were instruments in service. You had this experience, did you not? So absolutely full of love, but totally detached. And that's such a true thing, isn't it? Attachment is that in which one has selfish motives. However, Brahma Baba didn't have any selfish motives for himself, but he did have extreme love for the children in the name of service. And this is why the remembrance of the children didn't pull him. He was always loving and yet detached. And this is why it said the conqueror of attachment and the embodiment of remembrance. He had no consciousness of mind for anything. He even became free from attachment to the consciousness of the body. So I'm going to stop here. What truth does this excerpt from the Murli bring out in you? I think people have picked up on the fact that very clearly that if there is truth, love is true. And true love has no attachment. So many people make the effort to detach, but they stop, they don't understand that that's not the same as. We don't have to make efforts to be detached. We have to make efforts to love truly. So I think people seem to have picked up on that. And the I guess the greatest expression of truth is that love that, you know, that wants benefit for the other, wants growth for the other, wants, you know, freedom for the other. Real love cannot bind anyone. If it's true, it will not bind, it will free them. So that sort of goes a little bit contrary to how people think popularly about love, isn't it?
Well, and
it's a sort of a contract. I love you if you love me. If you don't love me, watch out, right?
mm-hmm.
So,
Well, and it's and love for truth and love for what is true is the love that you're speaking of, not love for people necessarily.
no,
Love for what
I
is
think
the soul.
if we love what is true in people, we'll love them truly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And of course, why do we love God? That's a no-brainer, isn't it? Because He's true. Once Baba said, I am the ocean of love because I am the ocean of knowledge. That means because of what I know, I don't have any other option except to love. Great Baba. Why would we associate detachment with truth? I've got a question for you. I've got an idea in my mind, but what's the deeper connection here between truth and detachment? That's connected with eternity. Anyone like to answer that question?
I become truly independent.
The thing is that if we think about it, I mean, all of these things are part of what I was thinking, yes. But the basic fact is that things are not intrinsically connected with anything else. The basic components are free, right? They're not intrinsically connected to anything. So souls are not bound to other souls unless we think that they are. Souls are not bound to matter unless we think that we are. Souls are not even bound to God unless we think that we are. And so truth and freedom, truth and independence, that came up in some of the comments. It's free is true. True is love. True is free. True is no, it's eternal. So, I mean, if we can just start to associate with these things, we can put things into place. I know that there are so many Brahmins that go through such a hard time with this whole question of detachment. I remember once I was giving a talk in Chile about the difference between love and attachment. And then we really had a powerful meditation. At the end of the meditation, everyone went away and there was a pair of shoes there. It means somebody got so detached in the meditation, they forgot to put their shoes on. And it was incredible. I mean, imagine everyone's gone and suddenly you find a pair of shoes there, men's shoes actually. And of course, they were in good quality shoes, so who would have abandoned them? But somebody left their shoes there. So obviously didn't understand the difference between detachment as a real thing and this sort of physical sort of abandonment of things. We do not abandon anyone. We do not abandon anything, but we correct the way we relate to things. Like yesterday's Moli created, I was reading the Moli yesterday to Argentina and the eastern part of Latin America. Of course, we divided into 2 time zones. And one person asked the question, and Baba wants us to move away from our, break our connection with our dirty relatives. That was the language Baba used, right? What does it mean? It doesn't mean to sort of break the relationship. It means break the connection that my body consciousness connect with someone else's body consciousness will not be beneficial, will keep me bound. So there's an arrangement between the body consciousness on both sides. And of course, that keeps us completely bound. And we don't leave the relationship. We leave the body consciousness that's in the relationship. That means we establish truth, real truth in the relationship. And that's what, that does create a lot of hassles, no? So, let's go on. There's lots more, but it's good that and this is just one aspect of the truth, huh? Let me just put it back into anything, in any scene. So that requires a lot of attention. Because I guess when we do something, we have some sort of an expectation somehow that this is going to work out. So how can I do that without becoming attached? This is our big challenge. And the question, for me anyway, these are my own thoughts, me writing to myself. Is there still a relationship that I don't have completely with Baba that leaves an opening for attachment? Which one? What haven't I understood? Just think about it. All of the possible relationships with Baba. Yesterday, who read the Moli for Brazil was Marianne from Costa Rica. And she shared the experience that when she was younger, she had a lot of trouble with her parents. It seems like especially with her mother, from what she said. I'm not sure exactly what the problem was, but she said she had a lot of problems. And this was when she was starting in Yan. And so she was suffering. Obviously, we suffer because of our attachment, basically, of our expectations and our unfulfilled hopes in someone or something. We didn't get what we wanted, or we didn't get what we expected. So she was saying that she had a lot of problems, apparently, with her mother. So she started to really work on the relationship with Baba as a mother. And lo and behold, after some time, she sorted it out with her own physical mother. So a relationship, a pure relationship, a true relationship with Baba can help us sort out the human parallel to that relationship. And that's what it seemed from her story. So it's a very good thing to do. So is there anything there that's making me suffer from someone, the uncrossable expectations, let's say, that one goes one way, the other one goes the other way? If there's something that I don't have with Baba, I think in my own case, I can't say that I had a good relationship with my dad, but I can't say I had a bad relationship. It was sort of a non-relationship in a way, because he was so quiet and so silent. He went through the Second World War, and obviously what he saw there really traumatized him. So he's a very quiet, reserved person. So my idea of the perfect father is very difficult for me, but Baba is the perfect father, so I had to work on that one. So which one do you have to work on? That's basically what this question is. Think about it. Now, another thing from Brahma Baba. This is another aspect of truth in Brahma Baba, truth from Shiva Baba and what he brought out in Brahma Baba. The renunciation of Brahma Baba is especially fixed within the drama. Brahma Baba, wait a minute, let me see. Brahma Baba's renunciation and the fortune of you children is written in the drama from the beginning. So when you see this phrase, written in the drama from the beginning, it's true for us. Our fortune is true for us. And his example is true for us. So what's the connection there between our fortune and Brahma Baba's renunciation? It's written in the drama from the beginning. Brahma Baba became the example of the foremost renunciation. Renunciation means to renounce everything when you have everything. Renunciation according to the time and problems is not elevated renunciation. Elevated, you can also say, is true renunciation. From the beginning, Brahma Baba had everything in terms of body, mind, wealth, and relationship, and yet he renounced it all. Although he could have had all of the facilities, he himself still lived in the old building. When I saw Baba's room first in the 70s, it was a very small little place, 1/3 of the size of what it is presently in Padma Bhavan, maybe less. It was very small. I guess about 10 people could fit in, squashed. And it was very simple, just a bed and place to hang clothes, basically, and a sort of a little writing table next to the bed. Sort of, it wasn't even a table. The facilities began to come from everywhere, and although he could have had everything, he remained very firm in his spiritual endeavors. So the connection between renunciation and simplicity. The tapasya that Brahma performed created the fortune of all of you children. According to the drama, only Brahma became the example of such renunciation. It was this renunciation that created his special role in serving with the power of thought. So the connection between that true effort and that simplicity and purity and truth, they all go together. And so, again, in your little chat, what truth does this excerpt from the Morley bring out in you? And I'll put it up again. What truth does this excerpt from the Morley bring out in you? What does it inspire? Just think about Brahma Baba and his simplicity, his renunciation, his cleanliness, and his purity and truth, all of them together. So what does it, what does it have to say to our cluttered lives? Could I be, of course he had everything and he didn't have any ownership of anything. He was surrounded by everything, but he himself just wanted the absolute essence of things, the simplicity. So what truth does this little excerpt of the Morley bring out in you? What does it touch? What does it inspire in you? So again, let's go to the chat. I'll leave it up, and that question, it's the same similar question to what we had up before. So we did that. Now, this is like a sort of a summary. For me, these are my notes. So renunciation means recognizing what truly has value. And Baba traded donkeyship for a kingdom. Do you remember that story, that he thought he was working as a donkey and in his jewelry business with his partner? And he said, well, I've got enough. I don't need that anymore. And actually sold it for very little. He traded it for very little because he had the visions of becoming an emperor of the world, you know. So it's not as if his renunciation, what's he leaving? He's leaving something that had little value compared to acquiring something that had immense value. So could you really call that renunciation? Anyway, my challenge, and this is something I ask myself, I have to identify what's really valuable and what's not, both in terms of my alokik and alokik life. So I leave aside what's not valuable, and we call that renunciation. And I invest in what's really valuable, and that's called acquiring a kingdom. So that's my challenge. And the question that I ask myself is there still something that I value but that has no real value? Think about it. What and why? What and why? Is there something that I still value but has no real value or no true value? It's not true. What and why? When I asked myself that question many years ago, with regard to professional work, because I was working as a consultant in strategic processes and so on, at quite a high level, with very competent people. Well, you could say, well, what's that got to do with, creating a kingdom of heaven on earth? Because it doesn't look like it has anything to do with it. But the value for me was not in the profession itself, or even in the money that I was earning, though that was useful. It was to use that situation as a laboratory in which I could test all of the things that Baba was teaching me. So it had immense value to be in that situation, that I'd have something to talk about. When I talk to people, I talk on their own terms rather than in theoretical terms. I could talk in terms of, look, we are going through this, and now what is the best and the most, let's say, moral or ethical option? That sort of thing. So there was value in the sense of what I could make out of it, not value in itself as some of the work that you did were helping people to sell something or the other. But once I even was asked to do some work with the people in the biggest tobacco company here in Brazil. And I wasn't interested in helping them sell more tobacco, obviously. But I was interested in working and knowing the people that worked in such a company. And I thought that if I could convince one or two to leave it, that would be a victory for me. That's what I did. Some people, after doing some work with me, they end up leaving the company, and which I thought that is, too more for our side. So it's not what we do; it's how we do it and what we do it for that has the value. But there are some things you can't change anyway. There was a brother who when he started Gyan in Sao Paulo, I asked him what his job was. He says he was a bouncer at the nightclub, the people that sort of stand guard at nightclubs to let people in or not. And I said to him, brother, that's something that you cannot transform no matter what way you look at it. So best thing for you would be to change your job, especially if you want to get up at from Rick Bella. He did, he was happy. So some things we can change, but most things we can transform, right? So that's where we are. And so just to finish off with some meditation. And we'll start with this meditation when we come back. So my truth, my innate truth, my internal truth, connected with the truth of Baba and the drama. So I am this soul. Giving life to this otherwise inert body. I'm the light inside this body. I give actually life to every single cell, every one of the trillions of cells of the body. My presence here gives life and light to every single cell. My presence here in this world is to help the world transform. My real existence here is not to do with the culture or even to the gender or the language or even the profession that I have. All of those things Baba would call disguises. But my real job, my true job here, is to be an instrument for transformation. So let me rest in that consciousness. I am this soul. I have this purpose. I'm just, Baba's given me this task. To make this world true again, as true as possible. So naturally that will change the way that I relate to the scenes of the drama. The scenes of the drama are not happening to me. I am actually happening to the scenes of the drama. I've come here to help change things. And Baba's given me this task. So let me remember Baba. The unlimited source, the unlimited power, just radiating that truth and benevolence and beauty. So I connect up with him, with that one. And that power actually activates my qualities. Just that remembrance, that connection, that loving relationship activates my qualities and makes me a better instrument here in the physical world through my body and through the things that surround me, the different facilities that I have. And like Brahma Baba having the facilities, I'm not attached to any one of them. I'm not distracted or attracted by any one of them. I just remember the source and bring that power into my life. So let's go back to the, now we can have a break.
So Ken, what I'm going to suggest is for all those who are coming back, let's start on the hour. So we'll take a 20-minute break right now, move around, do something to get yourself ready. When we come back, Ken, if it's okay with you, I'm going to suggest we do a 10-minute breakout group. So
Okay,
those who are going to be with us after break, stay on. Because I'm going to make groups to mix and mingle amongst countries, because Middle East, Europe, and Africa, and Mauritius can only be with us until the end of this session. So let's make the most of it. So we'll start at the top of the hour. And if over the break, as well as moving your bodies, you could think about one zinger that you heard from Ken this morning. One line, a zinger, like a line that went, oh my goodness, I better think about this, and bring that back to your small group. And in our small groups, we'll share zingers, okay? As soon as we get back. So we'll see
zingers and why zingers.
See you in 20 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Oh, Shanti, thank you. Thanks, Ken. And I'm going to play some lovely Ken music in case you want to wiggle while you have your break.
Like moths plunging towards the flame, we journey to home again. Like flowers open to catch the sun, our minds are open to see the one. To have you is the thing to feel. You are our everything. Oh, Baba, dearest Baba.
Many of you may know this, that I spent 3 months in London in the beginning with Daddy and Sudesh and Gentiben. And then I went back to Australia via Malabar. And on the way, Baba gave me a blessing that I would bring a bouquet of souls back. I had no idea what that meant. But what it did mean was when I got there, after a couple of weeks, the centre closed, which I'd gone back specifically to help. So it closed down. Nimala was there. She went to, I think, New Zealand or somewhere. Her visa had run out. There were no students that could really support the centre. The brothers started the service there, went back to England, John Kane. And the other sister who was with Didi Nimala and Suman Ben went to Germany. So I was there alone. And I didn't have a relationship. Suddenly, I was if I didn't do anything, no one would have known anything about it. But my feeling was that I had to create a family around me to sustain and inspire the effort, my own effort. That I had such a feeling that I had to serve, and Daddy had given me that blessing. And so I started a small centre. I informed everyone that, yes, I'm going to start a small centre. I found a job at a little centre in the same week in the same neighbourhood even. I could walk to work. And it was, but there were no seniors around me. In fact, I've never been in a place where there was someone, except for those first 3 months, that someone was more senior to me. Never. Only at a distance, but never like someone around who had to be the responsible one for what was going on. So I had to do that myself. But in order to do that, and since there was no senior sisters, I developed a relationship with Baba as my senior sister. So quite interesting experience. So I realized that everything's possible, you know. What will Baba say to me if he was a perfect sister to me, my older sister? What would Baba say to me if he was a perfect father? Let's say I'm a father. I know from Baba how he's the father, so that's the way I should be a father. In that way, and how he treats me as a son, I should treat my sons. How he treats me as a son, and I respond to that, which is like part of the deal in today's Morley. I mean, a deal means some sort of a contract where there are two sides. One, I would do this, I would, and the other one says, I would do this, and the contract is then signed. So every single relationship has two sides to it. It's not just Baba's a passive receptor of our praise, that it has to be an active relationship rather than a passive one. And so make it work. In other words, I have to make it work. So any relationship is possible, any relationship. And that I really feel that as close as we come to fulfilling our side of the relationship, I will become the embodiment of truth, because the truth, through the relationship, there's a sort of an osmosis that takes place where Baba's qualities start to fill me as well. And that can never happen at a sort of distance, at a distant admiration type of relationship. Will never happen. I have to come close, I have to interact, and I have to fulfill myself through the relationship, as Baba's more than willing to be available for. So there's a lot when we think about truth, there's a lot to think about. Now, let me see here. I want to share the screen again. Just to go back here a little bit. I like to meditate always a little bit, like this shifting between soul consciousness and God consciousness, right? Such a lovely thing to do. I'm the soul, Baba's in front of me, and I'm just absorbing those qualities and radiating them out. Such a simple idea, such a simple thing. 2 points, as Baba said in yesterday or the day before, was Morley, and the connection between the 2 points. So lovely. We just have to do that for a few seconds and we just feel completely aligned, completely okay. Now, let's continue. I believe we're going to go until 12:30, right? So I'm going to start with the second bit about Shivam, the benefactor. Like Brahma Baba. Of course, Shiv Baba inspired Brahma Baba to be a benefactor. And I believe, and this, of course, is just my own take on it, because there are so many ways you can understand things. Even this, I'm giving this segment on the Murlis every night on Navyak Parivar. But it's like everyone has the freedom to approach a Murli in the way that they feel appropriate. Everyone will do it differently, which is fantastic. It's just the plurality of our Brahmin family. It should be celebrated. So I understood, for me anyway, what brings out Baba, Brahma Baba as a benefactor, makes him available, is his surrender. Because Shiv Baba will use someone who is surrendered to do that benefit. And related to that, of course, is being Nimit, which is the responsible instrument. So the surrender means that I allow myself to be used by Baba, and it's actually there in the Nimitz too, but I put everything that I have at his disposal so that he can use it in the best possible way through me. Like today, Baba said, "What do you give me?" He said, "All you give me is a broken heart. And I pick up the pieces and join them together and give you back a whole heart." In a way, he said that, right? So what do we give to Baba anyway? So, and of course, being the responsible instrument makes me, be an instrument of that benefit. So these two aspects I picked up from Brahma Baba. So in thoughts, words, and deeds, he had in mind the benefit of the world. And he'd stay awake at night, sending Sakash to summon his scattered children back. And this is what happened with us. I remember in meeting Bapdada, there was a small group of foreigners. We were not called double foreigners at that point because it was still in the 70s. We're just foreigners. There were so few of us. And he told us that. He told us, like, don't you know how Brahma Baba used to sit and send Sakash to bring you back here? Do you know where you've arrived? Do you know why you took birth in those places? Baba was asking such questions. You took birth in those places to be serviced because it would be difficult for us to send sisters there because all of the problems with visas and so on. He said, you have the perfect disguise. You were born in a body that's completely disguised to be able to do service in those places with the language, and also no visa needed. So Papa was giving this, he was very jolly, sort of a little bit joking about this. And he even said, children, I don't need you. I don't need you. I could get all of this service done by touching all of the appropriate souls, but actually I give you the chance to do the service because you are the ones that have to create your future fortune and not me. So Baba was telling us it like that. So everyone was sort of so happy that then he said that Brahma Baba used to stay awake at night, summoning you back here. And of course, one way or the other, we all found our way back there. So beautiful. So the other question is, what am I responsible for? If I'm a benefactor like Brahma Baba, what is it that I'm responsible for? And with what? With what am I responsible? With what speciality? With what power? With what asset? Do I have something? Do I have a situation? Do I have contacts? Do I have some talent? Do I have anything to offer so that Baba can use me as an instrument for benefit? And again, in another situation, I sang a song for Baba. And that was quite a frequent scene in those early days. At the end of the Moli, one or the other of us would do a song for Baba or a dance. And then he would call us and give toli and say something or the other. So once I did a song for Baba, I went up after the song and to get the toli, and actually a lot of people only created songs in order to receive toli, right, directly from Baba's hand. And anyway, I went up and Baba said to me, give me your talent, which meant the music talent, and I will give it back to you purified. Give me your talent and I'll give it back to you purified. That was such a profound thing Baba was saying to me. That of course, anything that I had, any talent that I had, anything any ability that I knew or could learn, that also is going into the pot of surrender to be a humble and responsible instrument. So here we are from a Muli of 1970. Baba asks, how will you bring about equality? By being equal to Sakar Father. You now say Bap Dada, do you not? But how did Baba bring about that equality? He brought about equality within a second by surrendering. You need power to surrender in that way. When you have surrendered everything, you and everyone else lose any right to it. It's the same as when you give something to someone, you and others lose the right to it. If others still keep a right to it, what would you call that? I've already surrendered this. So that's the consciousness that we should have. And after surrendering everything in this way, how can you or anyone else have a right to it? While you or anyone else still has a right to something, it proves that there's a lack of surrendering it completely. And that's why there isn't equality. The result of those who surrender themselves after thinking about it a great deal is that that thinking becomes an obstacle in the form of waste thoughts. And it's such a difficult thing because what it means is surrender of the ego. Now, what feeling of benevolence does this excerpt from a Morley bring it about in you? What can you do? And I think what I'll do here is I'll go right through to the end and we'll come back to this. So for me, surrender. Brahma Baba bequeathed everything he had and never thought, how will such a thing happen? He surrendered his thoughts, words, and everything to the Father. Now, my challenge. Overcome the fear that I will lose my freedom if I surrender to Baba. In fact, the lack of real freedom is linked to the lack of surrender to Baba. If Baba offers us his everything, and so I shouldn't do any less. And the thing is that I feel maybe I'm going to lose something with this. In fact, imagine I didn't lose a talent by giving it over to Baba. Baba started to use that talent even more. So it's a subtle fear, isn't it? It's the ego that has the problem of surrender. And it's the illusion of self-sufficiency too that prevents it. So I think I can sort out everything by myself. I will go to Baba now and then to have a zing in my connection with him, but then I'll go back to doing the things that I like to do and in the way that I like to do. And of course, that sort of isolates me a bit because I don't have that free transit with Baba. So this whole idea of surrender and truth and surrender and benefit to make, even if I give something to Baba, he will give it back to me to use as a trustee, but not to continue using as an owner, that I have right over it or others have a right over it. I've given, Baba's using it, he has a right over me, but I don't have a right over the thing that I've given to Baba. But he doesn't begrudge me. He will continue making sure that everything, the best possible outcome will happen with the things that I've given over to him. So that's my challenge, overcome the fear that I'll lose some sort of a freedom if I surrender to Baba. Another question that sort of skewers us in a way. What am I still afraid of in terms of surrender to Baba? Sorry, this is a translation that's wrong. I'm going to change it here. Why? So, what am I still afraid of in terms of surrender to Baba? So, think about this whole thing. Think about how Brahma Baba did it and didn't lose anything. On the contrary, he became number one. And it's to be whatever I have, Baba, whatever I have, use it for benefit. Use it for benefit. I exist to be able to give over anything that can bring benefit to others. It's a really deep and spiritual consideration. So how do you feel listening to all of this? What's your immediate thought?
And I wonder if you could explain a little bit about how the illusion of freedom is actually an illusion. Because if that's really the root fear, then a different understanding might help us overcome it.
Yeah. No, you see, in the world, you have these independence movements, for example, that they think that when they're free from the colonial imperialists, they'll be free. But actually, they're actually often in a worse situation than they were before. So for a lot of people, they think that freedom is to be free to be able to do whatever I want to do. Basically, that's what it is. But if you interpret that in a body conscious sense, you have freedom to operate devices without any restrictions from any side. So freedom to live my attachments, freedom to live my ego, freedom to live my lust, freedom to live my, any excess of violence or whatever. So no one should tell me what to do. I'm free to do that. That's the illusion of freedom. So it's not freedom to be able to do. The real freedom is freedom from, not freedom to. Freedom from the from Maya, actually, from the illusions that things are more important than they really are. That my life is totally in my hands and no one else's, even Baba's, So we get the experience, for example, with discipline. Our daily routine, for some people, is extremely restricting because I have to follow a certain diet, I have to get up at certain hours, I have to take a bath in a certain way, I have to stop every now and then during the day, I have to be available to listen to Baba's words, I have to organize my life, in other words, around the Brahmin routine. Now, for some people, that's an incredible restriction, but for those who really live those disciplines, they don't feel like it's a discipline. Even the word discipline from Latin means to teach. Disciplinari means to teach in Latin. So self-discipline of what I need to teach myself. And if I'm teaching myself what I need to learn with Baba's help, then I'll feel much better, actually. So discipline is not restrictive, it's freeing, especially if I live it out in its fullness. So these are, some of the considerations. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. Because what we're afraid of losing then is actually that illusion of freedom, which we've grown accustomed to.
Yeah, because, if you look at my life, for example,
you don't have a minute free to do anything you want to do.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Because what you want to do is serve, be an instrument, right?
Yeah, the thing is, and on the other side, for me, that is a surrender, because if it were up to me, my own natural tendency would be to be quiet. Never to give classes, never to give workshops, never to share these things. My tendency is to be quiet and introspective and, thoughtful and so on, maybe write a few things, but, and play music. But Baba has found other things in my personality more useful. So if I allow Baba to use me in the way that he thinks. What do people dream of in their lives? They want to travel a lot. Well, I've certainly traveled a lot. I have everything I need. I don't, I've really, let me tell you, I've never really broken my head to pay rents or anything like that. Everything that was needed for service just came, buildings and all sorts of facilities came, but, they are not mine. I don't, the only thing I have in my own name, let's say, and even that, it's just my cell phone. That's it. I don't have anything else, but I have everything. So that feeling of having everything, what do people do? They want, maybe their dream is to write a book, right? Well, the Babas use that talent as well. So what have I lost? On the contrary, I've just gained. And of course, there are lots of other things, more subtle aspects of surrender that we have to look at, right? So I would just, we don't lose anything. That's the main thing that I have done. So we just gain if we give it over to Baba to use. So anything, any comments in the chat? I want to look at the chat. So let me put back up that quote for a while that you can read it. Especially the second paragraph. Equality in this sense means to be just as much as a benefactor as Baba is, if I can. And that's why I said Brahma Baba, because to be a benefactor like Shiv Baba is a little bit difficult for us because we're not unlimited. But to be a benefactor like Brahma Baba is more approachable. And how this lack of surrender becomes an obstacle in the form of waste thoughts. So think about it. On the other side of the coin, there's the idea of one of Baba's favorite songs is, when I have you, I have everything, the earth, the sky, everything. When I have you, I have everything. Benevolence proceeds from that feeling of fullness, doesn't it? If I'm feeling full and overflowing, benevolence is natural.
So, chat box request, is it Ken? Just thoughts or reflections that come from that reading.
Yeah, and even here.
This idea
about the
of
fear,
surrender. That one's a good one, yeah.
This one too,
Yeah, very nice.
overcome the fear that I'll lose my freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So any comments in the chat box? And now I want to go back to where I want to go. Well, Baba was never very much impressed by democracy. He used to use a pun, calling it demons crazy. And what he would say is that it's, in a democracy, there are antagonistic forces always. Some for, some against. You've got 3, 4, 2 against, they're really against each other. So it's probably the best system that we could do in Kali Yuga, for sure, but it's very far from being the best system overall, where people are naturally self-governing. That's what we're trying to create. And how can you have self-government, me governing myself, self-sovereignty, if I don't have the freedom to rule myself? So there's a lot of stuff here. Let's go back because there's still one more little bit before lunch. Nimit. Let's read this one. It's connected. Have I put on the, I have to put on the share. Yeah, right. Here we go. I'm sharing now, and here we go. A charioteer is someone who does not come under any influence and who has control as he drives the chariot. So what are all of you? You are charioteers, are you not? And the soul relationship to the body. A charioteer means one who's soul conscious, because it is the soul that is the charioteer. Brahma Baba claimed #1 success with this method. Therefore, the father also became his charioteer. So I become a great charioteer of my chariot, and Baba becomes the charioteer of the soul. That's what happened with Brahma Baba. So that relationship. Baba is my charioteer, guiding me, driving me in a way, and I'm doing that with my body. The father practically demonstrated being the charioteer. Followed the father. He became the charioteer and constantly gave the experience of the extremely loving and detached stage of life, of the life of a charioteer. Baba enters the body, making it subservient. That is, he becomes the charioteer. He does not become subservient to the body. That's why he's detached and loving. In the same way, all of you Brahmin souls must stabilize yourself in the stage of a charioteer, the same as the father. So it's like the perfect arrangement, isn't it? Baba guides me as a soul, and I guide my actions through the body. And so before we go on to this, I'll go to the last bit. What feeling of benevolence does this excerpt from the Murli bring out in you? This awareness of being an instrument. Brahma Baba always felt that he was an instrument of Shiv Baba, and he made it his natural nature. So my challenge, and this is probably for me anyway, the absolute foundation of self-respect is the feeling of being useful to Baba in any way. So my challenge, the feeling of being useful to Baba in any way for any situation implies two things. Being aware of the basic spiritual need of the situation. And secondly, and it's not always obvious, is it? Being aware of the basic spiritual need of the situation. And secondly, connected with Baba in the awareness that he knows more than I do about what is needed. So handing it over to Baba, right? I brought this situation in front of you. You know what's needed. Use me to bring that need. This soul in front of me has this specific need, but you know exactly what it is. So let it happen. So this feeling of being useful to Baba is probably crucial to becoming an accurate instrument. And the question, then we can check looking at these things of how Baba uses me as a charioteer or not, and how useful I am to Baba, and how much it is my natural nature to be benevolent. The question, what percentage of my time and thoughts has to do with the benefit of the world? Can I improve? How? So again, we leave those ideas. I don't think we need to put it so clear, the idea of Baba you being the charioteer, the soul being the charioteer of the body, and Baba being the charioteer of the soul. I'll leave this up so that we can comment in the chat box. So the meditation now is my task is the same as Baba's. My task is the same as Baba's. So here I am, a soul in a body, in a physical context, surrounded by other souls in bodies. Some of them are part of my more intimate context, some of them are not. But the world, the physical world, and all of the inhabitants on this physical plane, they require the powers and qualities that God has. And I am the instrument. I am an instrument, rather, to be able to make those powers and virtues and qualities available. So wherever anyone is, in whatever situation, they need what God has to give them. And I have the enormous fortune to be an instrument to bring that to them. I am not the source. I am not the purifier. I'm not the resolver of problems. I'm not the remover of sorrow or the giver of happiness. I'm the instrument to do that. I don't cure anyone or any situation. I'm the cure. I'm the instrument of the cure. I'm the instrument of the one who cures. I'm not the father or mother of anyone. I'm the instrument of the mother and father. I'm not the teacher. I'm an assistant to the teacher. I'm a student. So if anything has to be taught or sorted or resolved or cleaned or purified or elevated, if anything needs that, I'm the instrument. I'm not the cause of it. So let Baba operate through me without any interference on my part. Let me remember that. That Baba's behind me. He's behind my eyes. He's behind my words. He's behind my actions. My ideas may blind Baba to see what's really going on. So I need to allow. I need to love and allow, as Denzel said, so that I can really be an instrument to see what is true and what is the best way to go forward. I'm not the savior, I'm the instrument of the savior. I'm not the redeemer, I'm the instrument of the redeemer. So think of how great it is that Baba has selected me to help him in his great task of world transformation. So, okay, everyone, flying.
Om Shanti, we're going to read the blessings for those that are leaving us now. So you have to select one of these three words, Satyam, Shivam, or Sundaram. Of course, all three matter, but just pick one for the purpose of this blessing. And this will be what you take with you. Those that aren't able to come back this afternoon, and even those that are coming back, you'll get two. So pick Satyam, Shivam, or Sundaram. And for those of you who picked Satyam, make your choice now. I'm about to reveal it. You can take them all if you want. Here we go. You are a silent soul, anchored in understanding and practicality, whose true love for Baba and unlimited intellect leads to astute touching power and deep stability. So that's for those that selected Satyam, truth based on silence, anchored in understanding. Those that selected Shivam, you are Baba's lovely child, whose strength of character and courage to dive deep into truth, release all bondage, and bring the fruit of freedom to fly. Well, that was a good one. Huh? That was unplanned by me. You are Baba's lovely child, whose strength of character and courage to dive deep into truth, release all bondage, and bring the fruit of freedom to fly. Those of you who picked Sundaram, although we haven't explored it yet, we will come back for that this afternoon. You take this with you. You are a royal, honest soul who catches Baba's energy and translates it into realizations that delight and bring deep and lighthearted insights to nourish the family. You're a royal, honest soul who catches Baba's energy, translates it into realizations that delight and bring deep and lighthearted insights to nourish the family.
As things open up, that'll be probably the best thing to do, because people need what we have to give them, even though they don't know it. People need what Baba has to give them. People need, otherwise souls need God. So, and if we're his instruments, then we have to make sure that those needs are satisfied some way or the other. Anyway, my dear sisters and brothers,
Oh, let me make you co-host again. We're in a new reality. So
yeah, new reality, is it?
yeah, it's a whole new reality. I have to figure out how to do this. Let me just do this, Ken. I'll make you co-host again.
We did it this morning.
I know, I did it. There it again.
Yes, there?
Yep, you're in. Yep.
Okay, sure. Here we are. So here we are. Yes. So this whole idea at the moment. This morning we dealt with the idea of Satyam, which Baba is the truth, the true one, the eternal one, the unalterable and immutable one, unchangeable. All of those things could mean Satyam. So like the absolute reference for everyone else. And then Shivam, which would be the way he manifests, is pure benevolence. Baba just has benevolence. He just wants everything to be better and good. So that's the influence that he has on everyone else. That's why people remember him. They remember him for his truth, but they also remember him for him being the one who sorts out things in a beneficial way for everyone. And the last one that we're going to deal with now is Sundaram, which means the beautiful one, the lovely one, the sweet one. So it's incredible if we just stop and go inside and we just immediately remember Baba, and we just catch up with those rays and start to absorb them, so that our reality, our manifestation in the physical world is backed up by that spiritual power and light. And of course, the way that shows itself through the eyes, especially through the face, Baba's been saying recently, is as beauty. We become quite beautiful people. Not necessarily physically, of course, but spiritually, yes. And of course, if you look at history, people have been searching exactly for those two things, truth and beauty, more than anything. They haven't necessarily been searching to become benevolent, but they've been searching to be the recipient of benevolence, for sure. So people look for beauty, but they don't know that they're looking for God. They look for truth in things, but they don't know that they're looking for God. And they look for benefit, but they don't know that they're looking for God behind everything. So that's why we decided to do this topic, and we recapped a little bit just now. But I just wanted to reiterate, in a practical sense, Satyam, Baba in his role as Satyam, the true one, he's trying, what does he want me to know and to understand? So that's how he comes across. What does Baba want me to know and to understand? In fact, these are incredible ways to get into a murli, because in every single murli we will find Baba, either as Satyam, Shiva, or Sundaram, or all of them in the same murli. So if I ask myself, okay, today, what does Baba want me to know and understand? Shiva, what does Baba want me to do? What does he want me to give? That's also there in every murli. And Sundaram, what does Baba want me to be or to become? That's also there in every murli. So it's an interesting way to filter the murli through these three great filters, Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. Now, I wanted to share now something quite should be obvious, but it's not. We start off in our original state with those divine qualities. We're okay at the core, If you go right down, if you look at the soul as a sort of an onion with all sorts of rings, it's probably not the best example for non-onion eaters, but there are many different layers of an onion. So the closer you get, and each of those layers is a birth. And I was remembering this from the song that was just played. That song actually was a poem that I just put to music, sort of a very laid back sort of pattern. The music was quite laid back, but it was a poem. that I'd written. So there's one part that says, layer upon layer, they get peeled away and they reveal my original self. So that idea, if each layer is a birth, and each layer therefore is a sort of an, let's say, one of the egos that reside in us, and we remove all of those layers, we get to the core, which is just the original state. Everything else was built up on top of that. And in that original state, we have divine qualities. So at the base of us, it's good. You know, the impulse that starts out at our core is a good impulse. And then suddenly we're in front of a situation. So there's my original impulse and the situation, which really has nothing to do with that original state. It's so far away from it, so distant. Anything that may come up, like, you know, in our lives now. In fact, in our little group, we were talking about the COVID situation, and because in that town in Ontario, everyone was saying that they're going into lockdown this week. So I said, really? So here too, we've been in a permanent lockdown. We've forgotten when it's not lockdown, actually. So it's a situation that we have to deal with. And I've got these original qualities, those high ideals, this great relationship with Baba, supposedly. I've got everything internally, okay? And then suddenly something happens outside of me. And so what starts out at the base as a response to the situation is quite good as it starts out. You know, just the nearer you get to the original state, how the quality of that impulse is really good. But as it goes and filters through all of the layers, you know, there's something, I don't know how you'd call it, but in soccer or in football, in any game, maybe, they have the midfield. The midfielders are the ones that sort of stop the attack getting to the goal or to the touchdown, to the touch line, or whatever football, whatever, you know, the basket in basketball. So you've got people trying to block the attack even before the defenders are there, right? And so soccer, for example, which is, for me, I grew up in a country where rugby was a sport, and so soccer is a little bit hard to understand. How can you have a 90-minute game and the result is 0-0? Never could understand it. But it means that there's been a lot of activity in midfield. So I've been saying that as this impulse comes out, you know, as the impulse gets closer and closer to the situation, it gets stuck in midfield, you know. And what is that? It's like the sanskars of the middle and the end period. Like the Copper Age and the Iron Age sanskars are in between that really good impulse and how the response comes out towards the situation. And so, you know, also part of the sanskars, the actual concrete form of sanskars, are called karmic accounts. Right? That's the concrete, obvious form in which they've actually set into some situation that's chronic. So those sanskars have become part of the situation. So even though the original impulse is good, when it gets to the situation, it is a virtue that's been contaminated by one of them. And a virtue that's contaminated we call vice. It's a vice, you know. It's like, so love when it's there at the beginning is so beautiful and loving and so great, but when it gets out and through all of that karmic and sanskar stuff, it comes out as attachment, or it comes out as self-interest, it comes out as, you know, love for physical things, greed, it comes out as lust even. So love starts off okay, but it gets transformed along the way and becomes contaminated. An example spelt wrongly. This is how you spell it in Portuguese. So in our original state, there is beauty, there is perfection, there is purity, right? But when it gets to the situation, it gets upset by this, or shaken by the lack of that purity, or the lack of perfection, or the lack of that beauty. So we want beauty, but we can't create it. We get upset by the lack of it. We want perfection, and anyone who's a perfectionist or lives with a perfectionist suffers tremendously, because they can never make anything perfect in an imperfect world, with imperfect people trying to help them. So purity also, I remember a brother in one country down our way, he looked like a big kid, you know. He was, at the time, was about 40 or 50 years old, 40 odd years, and he looked like such a big and chubby little kid. And he had such an innocent look and an innocent vibration. But his biggest difficulty was exactly with you know, how to deal with that in a world where impurity is the norm. So he suffered tremendously by the lack of purity around. And I guess you can all understand that. So what is a consciousness of some original value actually ends up as some sort of arrogance, because it passes through that mess on the way. So what could be real self-respect on one side becomes, you know, arrogance. It loses itself along the way. Self-respect loses itself along the way and becomes arrogance. It's sort of being together with people becomes separation, and so on. So there are many examples of how we love to be, we would love, all of us would love to always be virtuous if we could, but it doesn't work out that way most of the time. Because though the initial impulse is good, the result gets affected on the way, along the way, through all of the different layers of sanskars. You got it? Is that okay? Is that okay, what I've just been saying? Is it clear?
Super clear.
Yeah. Can you relate to that?
I can. I really like that you put the impulse is good, and then it's the muddle along the way. That's a very nice visual of karmic accounts and how they warp and twist an otherwise really lovely intention, right? A pure intention.
Yeah, we start off okay, and why is that? Because we are that. This is me, you know. If we go back to this other diagram, the first one,
yeah,
you know, I am that, where that star is. That's me, as I really am. And since I've been in Brazil, I knew French before coming here, but it wasn't so clear. And they don't have this difference like French, like Portuguese, Spanish, and Italian do in Latin languages. They have two verbs to be. No, in English we only have one, you know, I am and I am, that's it. They will ask, how are you, right? And you say, oh, I'm okay. But in Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, you ask not how are you always, but how are you now? Like, como estás means how are you at this very moment. The estar is the verb to be, which is temporary. It's quite weird to get the idea around. When you say the sky is blue, you will say the sky is always blue. Like the sky o céu azul means different from estar. So I was thinking, yeah, that's pretty neat. You know, they have two ways to describe what they are. And it's you never ask somebody, how are you, using the permanent form of the verb. You always ask them, how are you now? So it's very easy. I'm okay, I'm more or less, I'm happy, I'm sad. But no one will say, yo soy feliz in Spanish. Yo soy feliz. They will say, yo estoy feliz. Soy ser means the being. I am always and always happy, and not just now. So that for learning a language is really useful, because it seems like even though we don't have that in English, we actually do live in those two states. How am I forever, and how I am at this moment.
Right.
So I am originally I'm okay, and nothing can take that away from me. I do have my original qualities of peace, love, and happiness. I am that. At the core, I am that, but I've become something else at the surface. So the difference between what I really am at the core and what I am at the surface is probably the cause of our lack of self-satisfaction. You know, so I'm dealing with two states, one which is my real me, and the other one which is my temporary me, and they're fighting it out, you know. And where consciousness resides is the one that holds the sway. So if consciousness resides in the temporary me, I'm always unsatisfied. But if somehow I can reside back in the real permanent me, then that's the eternal me, then I can really take shape or take hold of things. I can start to organize things better. And that's our challenge. And that's the challenge about becoming beautiful. So, and being a beautiful soul like Brahma Papa was. So, is that okay?
Samantha's asking, and maybe Sam, you can just unmute and clarify.
No, let me go out of this.
I
for a
know, you
while.
gotta get your glasses and stuff. She's asking.
No,
Go ahead,
not
Sam.
that.
Yeah, I'll unmute. So the question is, Ken, it's, you know, in the session, what stood out for me was the whole idea of making more effort for love rather than being detached. And so what I was thinking about in the afternoon was this whole connection between love and trust. And my feeling was that, you know, when you are in when you are in the state of love, then you trust automatically. And I just wanted you to share a little bit more about the connection between love and trust.
Yeah, I think because love is so close to our original state, the real state of love, it gives me an intuitive advantage in relationships. If I'm loving from the core. And what I mean by that is all of us occupy two spaces. One is our real authentic space, what we really are. And the other is a sort of a reputational space, which is like how people see us, how we have impacted on others, how people remember us. And I don't think anyone would ever agree that if I ask you, are you your reputation? Are you your reputation? Maybe you've lent some credence to that. You've given some people cause to believe in it, but you would never say, yes, I'm totally what people think about me. So we confuse trust with the sort of reputational space. Real trust is from the authentic me to the other authentic person. That's real trust. Any other combination, me dealing with someone's reputation or them dealing with my reputation, it's a game rather than authentic. And it's quite a subtle thing, you know, because I'll give an example. When you're trying to get on with someone, and let's say the other person's, you know that they're a sort of cranky sort of person, or, you know, not a very pleasant, they're sometimes a little bit harsh. You've seen examples of that. You know that that's how they could be. So you make some adjustment inside yourself to deal with this harsh person, or this difficult person, or this sloppy person, or this, you know, this, let's say, impolite or unkind or whatever, even this very sweet person. We make adjustments according to how they're perceived to be. Yeah, we all do that. Now, I want to harmonize, and I think real love and real harmony and real trust are very much connected. So let me adjust my feelings so that I can harmonize. We have to be careful, because real harmony is not between my perceptions and someone's vices, or between my understanding and their reputation. Real harmony is between my real self and their real self. Real trust is between my authentic self and their authentic self, which like excludes and forgives and permits rough edges, if you like to use that language. So I'm not permanently trying to adjust to someone else's rough edges and calling that let me trust. And the other thing that I think is that if let's say I'm loveful, yet the other one is not exactly loveful, but even then, how does Baba see that person? How does Baba see that person, especially if they're another Brahmin, right? Baba trusts that individual. So it's not even my prerogative not to trust, is it? It's not me who has to trust or not trust if Baba's trusting someone. So it's a subtle thing. And since Baba has said that we sort out most of our accounts with other BKs, along the way, a lot of those accounts are sorted out with other BKs, especially if you're in a large Brahmin group, which isn't the case here. But I remember once I asked a group of, there were about 500 BKs here in Brazil, and I asked them, they were all together in one retreat, and I asked them, how many of you has had their biggest difficulty with some other Brahmin? And 70% of them put up their hands. And then I asked them, like, is that person that you've had difficulty with still around? And of course they were shy to put up their hand because the person would see them maybe. I don't know. But it's interesting how we make such a big deal of trust and not trust when it's actually something much deeper than we normally perceive. It's like, if I'm loveful, I'm naturally trusting. Even if the person doesn't apparently merit that trust, doesn't matter. I'm trusting because I know that if I can reach that deeper part of that soul, he may be able to change. Got it? I don't know if that, is that a good answer?
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, these are great ideas. It's all to do with beauty, isn't it, that we're talking about now? So let's have a look at what Brahma Baba's visible signs of spirituality were. Here we are. So I took up, I mean, there are many things that we could take up related to how Brahma Baba is so everything, so virtuous, so patient, so loving, so kind, so generous, so sweet, so everything, you know. There are stories about every single virtue related to Brahma Baba. And of course, we have to give him all the merit because he was doing that without any example in front of him in a way. And we have this example, his example, and now the daddies as examples. If you saw Daddy on Avyak Parivar on last night and saw Daddy G saying, so lovely, she said, just say hello and welcome and you make people happy. You know, she was so natural and so cheerful, and that's the way we saw her. She was that. She had that visible spirituality. Daddy Janki, she was very generous. She was very caring, extremely caring, and at the same time, she was very, very forthright. So that's also a virtue, isn't it? Daddy Guza, very sweet, very humble, very silent. So each one of them was a flower in their own right. And Brahma Baba certainly. So let's see. And the other one, the whole thing of becoming beautiful is actually the influence that Baba has on us through our yoga. So I took up these two things to look at. And following Brahma means brahmachari doesn't just mean celibacy, it means to follow. And so follow Brahma. So to be brahmachari means to follow the activities of Father Brahma. This is from 84. Let each footstep of your thoughts, words, and actions be in the Father Brahma's footstep. And let the Father Brahma's activity be visible in every action you do. So let your thoughts, words, and action be like those of brahmachari, the ones who follow Brahma. And what does it look like? Those who are brahmachari, those who are following Brahma in this way, are always seen to be introverted and in supersensuous joy in their face and behavior. So brahmacharis are those whose every action reveals the activity of Brahma Baba. Their words are similar to the words of Brahma. Their way of doing everything is similar to the way Father Brahma did everything. So this is Shiv Baba, actually Bapdada, giving the example of how his activity was so dignified that it was worth following thoughts, words, and actions. So as we have the example of Brahma Baba's in front of her, what beauty in the soul does this bring out in you? And my own reflections about this. So this is like the essence, spirituality. If you wanted to have an example of spirituality, he was it. It was visible in his actions and features. Actually, apparently, any time of the day, they'd never seen him with a tired look on his face or a worried look on his face. Always completely in sync with the drama in a way, with Baba. So my challenge, of course, what's the test of spirituality? Any situation that comes up, or a difficult person or an adverse situation, they are the tests of how spiritual I am. Baba says that it's very easy to be spiritual with peaceful people, but the real spirituality is when I'm peaceful with those that are, when I'm spiritual with those that are not peaceful, with those that are sort of creating problems. So my challenge is what I wrote for myself. And we're up for the most different types of tests, diverse tests you can imagine in the coming future. So develop my ability to face and pass the most diverse tests. Understand that a spiritual state that runs away from difficulties cannot be real. So this is my note to myself. I have to face them, whatever they are. And I have to use my understanding. We have two inputs in our Brahmi life. One is Gyan and one is Yoga. And we have two outputs. One is Dharana and the other is service. So if I have the right input, I'll probably have the right output. So that's why understanding is part of it, so that I can face real situations in the most beautiful way possible. And the question that we have, what aspect of my behavior needs to be improved? And what quality of Shiv Baba do I need to do this? So this is our question just now. If you can think about it and write down in the chat some sorry, I write down in the chat some answer to this question, thinking about Brahma Baba, thinking about putting our thoughts, words and actions in consonance with his, thinking about his example, his way to face situations, and the virtues that were constantly being tested, facing what we have to face, but in a virtuous way. And so what do I need to change, and what quality do I need at the moment? And of course, he was we can see him through the daddies in a way, because their behavior was just as what was in the Murli. They followed his every step in a way, his example in every step, the way he would do it, the way he would say it, the way that he would face something. And so we've got the legacy. I think that's the best thing that we can say. Another thing that I like is Bap Dada were together when Brahma Baba was still alive, right? They were together, a combined form, especially towards the end. So those of us who have met Avyak Bap Dada, we've seen the expression even on Daddy Gozar's face, which isn't her face at that time, though it is her face physically. It's not her expression, it's Bap Dada's expression. And so that absolute, if you looked at the images that they're using on Avyak Parivar every night of the drishti from Bap Dada through Daddy Gozar, look at that expression, and you'll find that that's Bap and Dada together there. You know, Shiv Baba is the source of the power, but the loving, concerned father, and you know, the one who wants to look after the Brahmins is also there. That's Brahma Baba. So get a look at the expression in the eyes. So towards the end, that Bap, just towards the end, that was pretty much how Bap Dada is after that, right? In terms of expression. So use that as a gauge rather than any photos in black and white that you see around. Anyway, I've got some other great photos of Brahma Baba. I was in ORC, which is our retreat center in Delhi, at the beginning in March last year, because we had a program in the big stadium there. And I was in I stay in a building in Bridgemoreland by our senior brother. He is in the room next door. So he has a sort of a sitting room off his bedroom, and I would often go there and have a chat with him. He's got this incredible photo of Brahma Baba stretched out on a bed like this, you know, with such a look of bliss on his face, just completely, you know, stretched out on a sofa like that, contemplating I don't know what. But his expression is such bliss. So he was, for me, his blissfulness was pretty much attractive for me, very much, besides all of these other things. Anyone else like to weigh in on his virtues before we go into the next little bit? Last one.
Just because you mentioned bliss, Ken, I'm thinking of a story I heard of one time Daddy Janki as a little girl walking by History Hall, and Brahma Baba was in History Hall all by himself dancing, and they had some interaction, and he said, I'm going to be Krishna, I'm going to be dancing. He was just in that state of super sensuous joy, and that's a really nice image to hold on to of the sometimes stern father who took care of everything, that he was also able to celebrate and be in that stage of super sensuous joy and bliss.
Yeah, when I first came along, he'd only been gone 6 years previously, so his, let's say, his vibration and the way people did things was still very present. And that simplicity and royalty that we read in today's morning, Morley was there. And this morning we read about it. The simplicity of his room. The room was still that small size when I first went there. And everything in Madhava was completely simple. To be quite honest, you know, we had our meal sitting on the floor. There was just sort of a strip of carpet in between, and everyone would sit on the floor and eat. Sit on the floor and meditate. There weren't seats, actually. There was one car in all of Madhava, and there was an old truck left over from the Second World War. And that was it. That was the extent of the vehicles. So the vibration was such simplicity, such purity, such royalty, such, you know, such, I'd say, austerity even. It was really impressive. Somehow along the way, they went a little bit away from that simplicity. Anyway, Baba was there. He was the example of that, and he's our example for that, not anyone else. Okay, let's go back and do the last little bit about him being the constant yogi, and then we'll finish off with a little bit of meditation. So this morning from 2014. Just as you saw and heard about the specialities of Father Brahma on this day, which was, of course, 18th of January, they always remembered him. So you are following in that way, aren't you? And we just heard about all of these specialities just now in our little sharing. Just as all of you in the corporeal form have seen and heard about the practical life of the Father Brahma, of him coming into all relationships with the One. So Father Brahma has especially brought in front of himself all the children who follow him and has given them special love and remembrance. So did you accept remembrance from the Father Brahma? This idea of him having all relationships with the One. He's given lots and lots of love from his heart. And love means to receive this blessing of follow the Father. So follow the Father in having all relationships with the One. And that's, you know, how to see that, to have such, for him, for example, he was, he even, with his Lokik wife, his vision changed so much that she was just his loving spiritual sister, because Shiv Baba was his beloved. So it was like a big change in everything. He became the perfect student because he had such a close relationship with Shiv Baba as a teacher and so on. And as someone mentioned, he's so disciplined. So he was the embodiment of remembrance. And the awareness of being the master of the unlimited and the awareness of being a world service. So those three things were together. Just being the embodiment of everything he did was embodied that connection that he had with Baba, Shiv Baba. He was a master of that unlimited treasure because he had access to it. And he was the world server. He had a focused dedication on achieving a goal. And Brahma Baba, despite his former life as a wealthy man, managed to discipline himself totally. And so these are notes to myself, just reading into Brahma Baba's incredible example. My challenge is to make Baba my world. No, Shiv Baba, make Shiv Baba my world. This is a challenge and a constant challenge. And the question that I have for myself What is the quality? Sorry, this is wrong. No, what have I done now? I've jumped out. I'm sorry, I translated everything very quickly. It's all translated from Portuguese. So when, let me see, where are we? Here we are. I'll share the screen again. Somehow I got bumped out. So this last one, what is the quality of Baba that I notice most in my life when my yoga is good? And what happens? So think about it. When your meditation is actually working, you feel that you have a fairly strong connection with Shiv Baba, and he's bringing up, he's activating all of your innate qualities. And I always remember that we have all of the qualities the same as Baba. What we don't have is power and purity. So he has to give us both those things, and that actually brings our innate qualities that are already there to life. So what is the quality of Baba that I notice most in my life when my yoga is good, and what happens? So my virtues and Baba's virtues. Yeah, between Shiv Baba and me, there's actually Brahma Baba's example that is like undeniable. So he had this consciousness, that very special connection with Shiv Baba, which was not exclusive. We can have the same connection, we can have the same relationship. Why not? I know exactly as much as Brahma Baba did. He didn't have extra tuition, he had the same basics as I do. So I can have that same level of virtues, why not? So I go to Shiv Baba. Mentally, I'm just in front of that one, the absolute infinite source of qualities, the ocean of qualities. And being in the field where those qualities operate, naturally I pick them up. His love activates my love. And purifies it too, at the same time. His peace activates my peace and purifies it, gives it power, empowers it, empowers my peace, empowers my love, empowers my joy. So that I can, sit and face the world with that state of equanimity. Nothing can upset me, nothing can worry me, nothing can shake me. These qualities are my properties. No one can take them away from me unless I allow it. I am peaceful, loving, benevolent, content, powerful because of his power. All of those qualities are behind me, backing me up as I face the world. I just stay in that loving company, that unlimited state. There are no boundaries. Even for a short few moments, I can be Bapsaman, like Baba. Beyond and unshakable. Pure and benevolent. With so much love that everyone can fit in my heart. And even there is some space left over. So, thank you, Baba. Shanti, everyone.